I'm Jonathan Larsen with TYTI Investigates, and we've only just barely begun the impeachment hearings into Donald Trump, so we don't have too much to go on just yet, but there are some important takeaways from just what we've heard this morning. We're talking Wednesday morning, and so I wanted to go through a couple of the beats just to sort of lay out at least what I'm seeing. There are definitely Ukraine experts out there, so if you're looking for in-depth insights into how the context of all this plays into the history of Ukraine, God bless, and you should be somewhere else. But we have been talking here on TYTI Daily about the testimony that's been coming out, right? Because virtually all these people have already testified behind closed doors. A lot of those depositions, if not all, transcripts, I should say, are already public. So we know to a large extent what's already out there. But that said, the public hearings that have now begun as of this morning are revealing quite a bit as well, if not factually, then politically and contextually. And if you were watching this morning, one of the very first things that happened was before Chairman Adam Schiff could even begin turning things over to beginning his opening statement, getting the witnesses' opening statements, several Republicans objected. They had a line of procedural questions that mostly had to do with getting testimony from the whistleblower, which of course would require the committee learning the whistleblower's identity. And as a tactical move, it was revealing, because what it tells us is that the entire substance of the defense, right? This is the moment when all eyes are on them, the curtain opens, and they come out, and what do they have to say? The only subject matter they had to say was, it touched on procedure, but primarily it was about the whistleblower. So that tells you that they don't have an active affirmative defense. They don't have, he didn't do it. The best they have is, well, some of this information originally came from someone who maybe we don't like. That's a terrible defense, just so we're clear. And the other thing I think is that the Republicans right now are benefiting from the anonymity of the whistleblower, right? And what I mean by that is anyone inclined to side with President Trump in this can sort of fill in the blanks of what we don't know about the whistleblower with their own assumptions about who that person is. In the testimony that we are now seeing from George Kent from the State Department and Bill Taylor, the former chargé d'affaires to Ukraine, essentially the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, what we're seeing now is how powerful it is to have real grown-up human beings testify to these things, lending not just their bearing to their story, but also bringing smart, very tough to refute context in a way that makes it very hard to portray them as people who have spent a lot of time gunning for President Trump. What we heard from Kent and Taylor this morning was primarily, Ukraine is a wonderful place worth saving. And that is what has occupied most, if not all, of my diplomatic professional passion in the recent past. And that is what motivates me. So the other thing I want to say about witness credibility here is that it's a little bit unfortunate in a way that the witnesses, and I should note, Republicans are not going after Taylor and Kent and those people. Vinland maybe a little bit, but for the most part, the witnesses are not getting the typical Trump treatment. And in part, that's because these are Trump appointees, right? These were top-level people within the Trump administration. If he didn't appoint them directly, then his people did. So it's very tough to say that, oh, well, this is someone who once worked in the Obama administration, therefore they're not credible. But the problem with that is that it sort of endorses or gives an imprimatur to the idea that witnesses against a president are only credible if they come from his or her own party. And that's a terrible, corrosive notion that we really have to do away with. And so in some ways, I'm reluctant to overly praise the credibility of these two witnesses because I don't like enshrining that notion. They're credible because there's no reason to think they're not telling the truth. And and whether they had voted for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, neither of those are a reason to think they're not telling the truth. Those might explain, if we were to learn later that they had lied, why they lied, but that in and of itself is not evidence of dishonesty. The other thing that Kent brought in his opening statement, again, this is he's a deputy undersecretary or something like that for Eastern European Affairs in the State Department. And he talked about Burisma, and he talked about the investigation into Burisma and Hunter Biden. And he said in his testimony, and again, this goes to his credibility, he talked about the perception of a conflict of interest. And that's great, and that's appropriate. And we like to see that because, if nothing else, that lends credibility to him. He's not blind to things that are detrimental to the case against Donald Trump. He's willing to acknowledge them, which helps sort of establish him as a fair shooter. And the other thing I want to say about that is that a big part of the defense of Donald Trump in this scenario is that, well, of course he wanted Ukraine to fight corruption before giving them aid. That's a natural, appropriate position to take. And that is true. The problem is, and this is what Kent got at, the problem is that that's not your job, Mr. President. There are protocols for doing that. And the other thing that we heard from Kent was that Ukraine was doing all the things they wanted. There was no foreign pressure, meaning foreign from the US, to leave Burisma alone, right? All of these things, all of these boxes that Trump is claiming he was checked, they had already been filled in. So the notion that he was just doing this, it doesn't pass muster, because as we discussed yesterday, we got new testimony from Laura Cooper at the Defense Department that she gave back in October, where she revealed that the Pentagon, as part of an interagency review, had already certified Ukraine's anti-corruption efforts in a way that was much more rigorous than it had been the previous year. So all of these motives that Trump allegedly had for doing these things, which are exculpatory motives, right? Because without those motives, the only thing he's got left is going after Biden. These motives are being, these exculpatory motives are being taken away from him because those boxes had already been checked, and there is no foundational premise for why he would doubt those findings or circumvent the whatever proper procedures there are for pursuing the things that he said he wanted, anti-corruption measures and so on. So that leaves, I think, the Republicans literally with nothing better than to claim that the whistleblower was biased. And if the whistleblower was frickin' Chelsea Clinton, it doesn't matter, right? Trump has already said the worst of it himself. So it's going to be interesting, I think, less to see what the witnesses say, although, again, the context they provide is just devastating, especially in terms of their very clear drive to help Ukraine, a country that not only was literally taking casualties every week, including every week that it did not get the military aid from the US, but a country that was doing all the things that Trump ostensibly said he wanted them to do, right? Kent, Taylor, Yovanovitch, all of these people were trying desperately to help a nation that had just elected a new president on a platform of fighting corruption and was making good on his promises and was now being undercut because he wouldn't publicly say the thing that Trump wanted him to say. So I don't want to go too long today because we should all get back to watching the hearings or having lives, right? Self-care is important too. You don't have to watch the hearings to be a responsible citizen. But before I go, I do want to take a look at what you folks have to say, and whether or not you've been watching the hearings. I'm still curious to see what you have to say. Eve Gussman says, "Hey boo, hey." Reptile Z says, "Hey, here, coffee is on." Humboldt Hot Takes says, "Hello people, ready for depositions? Yay!" X-Force says, literally listening to this and the impeachment hearings at the same time. I actually considered having an earpiece in here, but I would be tempted to respond. And I think it's a problem that we feel the urge to respond immediately. I think we're in this epistemological transition period of human history where we haven't yet figured out how to process the immediacy of information. And I'm trying to help us evolve. Okay. X-Force says it's weirdly blended into like one voice, one convo. I think I overclocked my brain. Well, I apologize if we broke your brain there, X-Force. Felicia Ritter says, hi, Jonathan. Testimony has been interesting, revealing many facts. So yes, it certainly has. I think most of this has probably come out in their previous closed-door testimony. But again, this is theater. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, again, this is part of our epistemological growth. We process things based not just on the raw facts, but on how we obtain those facts. If it's from a person speaking right in front of us, maybe holding our hand or hugging us while they speak to us, or crying, or speaking directly into a camera if we're watching them on TV. If they stutter and if they say, we take them less seriously. We shouldn't necessarily, but hearing these people being articulate, being thoughtful, being passionate about Ukraine, and passionate about the right way to do things, right? That's a theme that you see throughout this. We saw Taylor today, Bill Taylor, talk about the parallel track, right? There was one track that was committed to executing the publicly stated foreign policy of Donald J. Trump. And then there was another track which appeared to be intersecting at times when it needed the access to Ukraine that this track provided, but was itself pursuing its own track. And Giuliani took a number of hits today, including from Kent and Taylor, after they specifically said, we're not here to take sides, but Rudy Giuliani, man. So to that extent, certainly I think what we've seen today has been very interesting, very revealing. Let's see. Felicia is now filling in X-Force. X-Force says, I can't do this, brain exploding. I'll have to watch the show later. Love you all. Love you, Jonathan. Love you back. And it's okay. It's okay. You have my blessing to go watch. I only have 34 people watching now, which is very low for us lately. So I take that as a sign that most people are watching the hearings, which, again, I get it. I should be watching the hearings. X-Force says they can't change testimony, so F them. Trump will be impeached. It's all about the Senate. Milo Wadlin says at 67 it's too late to get a life. Never true. Never true. Unless you no longer have a life, you can still get a life. Reptile Z says, keep up the good work, JL. Thanks for bringing us together here. Humboldt Hot Take says, intimate crowd, not small. That's right. That's the marketing. The marketing people are on line one now. In fact, it reminds me, for Halloween, of course, we buy candy, and we got the Snickers or whatever, and it's a big bag, and it says fun size. And I open it up, it's tiny Snickers. I'm like, this is not a fun size. This would be a fun size. Anyway, so we had our intimate size Snickers for Halloween, and now we have our intimate crowd for our impeachment hearings. But the chat has slowed down, which is fine, and there's very few people watching. So let's take a quick vote. Do you think we should all just pack it in, go back to actually watching so we can process this stuff? Or do you think there's something we actually need or should be addressing right here in the chat right now? I'm fine and won't be hurt if the option is to go to watch the hearings. DLJ says, where does one go to watch the hearings? Well, basically, if you just turn on the internet, but you can also go to the House Intelligence Committee. They have it live on YouTube right now. And in fact, what I should be doing is see if I can share it on our own channel as we speak. I cannot. Oh, wait, maybe I can. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, stand by. Okay, there. Now, anyone who wants to watch, you should be able to watch on our YouTube channel. I just shared their feed on it. Oh boy, what happened? Right after I said that, we got a whole flood of, oh no, I'm see, I'm in their feed. Okay, all right, so let's, James Martin says, remain on, please. So James, thank you so much, but I gotta ask, why would you like me to remain on here with you folks? Is there anything in specific that you think we could benefit from breaking down? So give me something to work with if you want to, if you want us to keep going, because we can, but we gotta have something to talk about. So James, hit me with something. See, now we're at 25, so this is gonna become self-determining at some point. There's gonna be no one left. It's gonna get that intimate that it's just me. All right, so James, I apologize, but I'm not seeing anyone asking questions except where can we watch? So this is historic, right? This is momentous. This matters, right? So take care of our country, right? Stay on top of this stuff. Take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. And we will see you tomorrow on TYTI Daily here every weekday at 11:30 a.m. And Eastern Time. And I'll have to figure out what we're doing on Friday when we're going to have the same issue. All right, bye, guys.